Okie dokie. All right. Georgia beats Florida in the cocktail party, as we all expected. And it was a sort of statistical game that we all expected from Georgia. Stetson Bennett throws for 300 yards. Dewan Edwards rushes for 106. Brock Bowers has 154 receiving. Georgia was never really pressed, other than what I found to be sort of disturbing. Georgia turned the ball over 3 times. Um, and Florida scored 17 unanswered points in the third quarter of the game. And it was sort of, and part of the reason they scored 17 unanswered points because Georgia fumbled and then Stetson Bennett threw another pick. I mean, you know, I'll say what I've always said. The only team that can beat Georgia is Georgia. Now, all that said, uh, you turn the ball over 3 times in this game against Tennessee, you're losing. Write it down, folks. Georgia better play a mistake free game because if it's one thing that we know, and I backed Kentucky this week, thought they would cover the number, it wasn't close. Why? Kentucky made mistakes and Tennessee made them pay for every single one of them. This is not an offense that you've really seen before. This is a different offense than Bama. It's different than what we thought. Again, Kentucky had 3 turnovers in the game against Tennessee. You know what Tennessee did right afterwards? Turned every single one of them into points. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. So, this is a Tennessee offense that is going to give Georgia all they can handle and more. And if Georgia makes mistakes, they are going to get pounded. It is not going to be an easy victory by any stretch of the imagination. This may be outside of the national championship games, given what was at stake in those. Um, this is probably the biggest game of the Kirby Smart era. I don't think that is an understatement in any size, way, shape, or form. I mean, this is a top 5 offense in the country by every metric with a Heisman Trophy candidate on it. Yeah, it's kind of like playing Alabama again, but still, this just feels different. And maybe because it's Tennessee and it's not Alabama and it's orange and it's not crimson, that we're or at least I'm looking at a little bit differently. Um, but Georgia cannot make mistakes in this game. They can't go 17 unanswered. They won't catch up. You cannot get in a game with Tennessee where you trade score for score. You're going to be on the wrong side of it. Georgia can't allow that game to unfold. Because if Tennessee can move the ball with that kind of ease on Georgia's defense at any point in the game, they can do it when it matters in the game. I mean, they're going to have to get after Hendon Hooker, make life uncomfortable for him, and absolutely figure out how to force them to punt. Because that's the real challenge, right? They're going to have to get stops. And if I do anything, I go back and look at the tape of Florida, Tennessee, that game that was in Neyland Stadium, 38-33 final. That's where this game needs to be. You can't let Tennessee get to 40. And I know what I keep hearing about Georgia's offense and everything statistically and where they are. They haven't had to play keep up with anybody. Your offense is different when you play with a lead. Georgia's had the ability to play with a lead all season long, save the Missouri game. And that was a game they only scored 26 points in. See the difference, folks? It's easy to score 40 when you've already got 20 on the board and a 3-touchdown lead. I'm not going to talk about the opponents that they played because Tennessee's played the same level of easy opponents, save Alabama. Right? So it's not about the opponents they played. It's about this offense has never had to be challenged yet this year to score other than in the fourth quarter against Missouri. Now, they executed. I'd argue Tennessee's defense might be as bad as Missouri's, if not worse. Fine. But Missouri also settled for field goals, didn't score touchdowns, and couldn't score on Georgia's defense. Tennessee won't have that problem at all. At all. So I am optimistic for Georgia, but I am certainly guardedly optimistic. And this may very much be a game where styles will make fights, right? I would tell you that if Georgia can dictate the tempo and the pace, they will be able to control the outcome of the game. If they play Tennessee's game, they're dead in the water. Do not get in a score for score matchup with this team. You'll lose. That's just, it's simply a fact of the matter. If you don't think that, you haven't been watching a lot of Tennessee football this year. And trust me, I know Georgia fans don't watch a lot of other teams. I have concrete proof of that. So, and I'll explain that in Shovels of Wisdom coming up in a minute. But it was a very very interesting Saturday to say the least. We got some really sort of it was kind of chalky from a standpoint of all the teams that were higher ranked. One, nobody really got upset per se, except for Syracuse. They don't count. They shouldn't be ranked anymore anyway. And Wake Forest finally cracks the top 10 and then loses a road game to Louisville. So we saw the Ohio State Penn State game. Um, and obviously the ranked matchup, Tennessee and Kentucky, but all the higher seeds won there. So nobody really, got upset this week. But we're going into a week of college football that's going to be very, very exciting. And of course, we'll get to the college football playoff rankings as well. But first, want to remind you guys before we get to our Shovels of Wisdom that Locked On Falcons, it's an amazing show. Aaron Freeman does a great job. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Falcons your first listen every single day. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. It's available on the Odyssey app and wherever you get your podcasts, as well on the YouTube channel.